let's do a full first-round mock draft.
No huddle, Wilson end zone, caught,
touchdown, Elijah Moore. What's going on, guys? So today I wanted to do a little bit of a different experiment, and instead of doing Jets-centric content, I wanted to do a little bit of a longer form piece of content where we did a full first round mock draft of all 32 teams. Well, not 32 teams because not everyone's picking in the first round. I just haven't done a first round mock draft recently, and with so many teams having 2 picks in the first round, it gives a lot of flexibility. So today I'm going to do a full first round mock draft. I'm going to do all 32 picks. I'm going to go over my thought process on why I think these teams are going to take these players. And then we're going to do that. We're not going to do any trades in this mock draft. Just let's have the teams, pick where they're at, pick the players that I would pick if I was the GM in that situation, and how I would build these teams. That's what this draft is. It's not necessarily predicting what is going to happen in the draft, but it's more going to be predicting if you are these teams, what would I do in this draft? So let's hop over. Today we're going to be using PFF's mock draft simulator. I really like PFF's mock draft simulator. It comes as close to my big board, my personal big board as it is. They have a couple of the people on the top. I have Icky as my #1 prospect in this draft. You know, I don't have Derek Stingley in the top 15 because we don't know about his injury. I have Kayvon Thibodeau a little bit lower. But that being said, let's go through this draft. Let's talk about it. And let's go Jags at #1. So the Jags are an interesting team here because a lot of people are mocking Aiden Hutchinson to the Jacksonville Jaguars because they franchise tagged Cam Robinson. Now, one of the things that I definitely want to talk about is I don't believe that the Jags are fully committed to taking the edge rusher. You bring in Doug Peterson, you bring in like this staff, and I think when you look at teams and the way that they draft, they don't draft for what do we need for the next year. They always think of what do we need in 2 or 3 years. How are these contracts going to end up in 2 or 3 years? And for me, I look at this #1 draft, and I know it's going to get a lot of people maybe scratching their head a little bit, but I don't see how they pass up on a player like Ikem Ekwonu here at 1, I'm sorry. I know Aiden Hutchinson is great and all of that, but I like I said, on my big board, Icky's the #1 player. They have a need on the offensive line. Like, even if you say, hey, you know what? We're going to be fine at pick on the left tackle for a year. Like, play him at right tackle. Play him at guard for a year. Like, you just need help in the trenches. You just invested so much capital in your offense last year, and you spent a bunch of money on your wide receiver, like to go get Christian Kirk this year. But if Trevor Lawrence is running for his life the whole time, and he can't sit in the pocket and wait for these plays to develop, especially with a Christian Kirk, who's like a deep threat, I look at that and I go, Ike Ekwonu, he's the pick for me here at #1 overall. I don't see how they don't do that. Now, the Lions are here on the board, and I know what you're thinking. So this has to be the Aiden Hutchinson pick, right? We've had Aiden Hutchinson of the Lions for the longest time before they had before the Jags franchise tag Cam Robinson and all of that stuff. And I go, no, I don't have them going edge. I think they have a lot of needs everywhere, but I also look at them and I go, I think they fell in love with Malik Willis. They got to coach him up at the Senior Bowl. They spent a lot of time with him. All 3 coaches, like general manager, quarterbacks coach, offensive coordinator, head coach, all went to the Liberty Pro Day. Like, I think they're going to take Malik Willis because I don't think they think that Malik Willis is going to be there at 32. If the draft would have happened a month ago, they would have definitely gone Aiden Hutchinson here, or they might have gone Kyle Hamilton here, but I think you have to go Malik Willis here. And knowing that you have Jared Goff on the roster, you use Jared Goff as your, like, Alex Smith, and you try to groom Malik into your Patrick Mahomes. So I think the pick here at 2 is Malik Willis. This is where we go here. Now, the Texans are on the board here, and they have a need like at every position here. And I look at this and I go, they're picking here at 3. They pick again at 13, and there's 2 positions that I think that they have to address, and I think they're going to have to address the trenches. I don't think the Houston Texans are sold on Titus Howard as their tackle of the future. They haven't picked up his 5th-year option. They haven't seemed like they've tried to extend him at all. There were a lot of reports coming out of Houston that Laramie Tunsil was trying to be traded. I don't think that Laramie Tunsil got traded other than the fact that his value, I think, is in the floor right now. He missed almost the entire year. He was kind of playing half lazily, halfway, like, for parts of the year. So, if I'm the Texans here, knowing that I'm picking again at 13, knowing that I can address the defensive back room, the edge position, the defensive line, you know, in at 13 and still have a lot of value, I'm going to take Evan Neal here. At 13, we're not going to have an Evan Neal type player. The Giants, the Panthers, the Seahawks are all players that are teams that need help on the offensive line. So I have Evan Neal here to the Texans, and I think that they're very, very happy here. This is where, as a Jets fan, if the draft played out like this, I'm happy. I'm sprinting to the board. I'm getting Aiden Hutchinson. I don't even think that's like that big of a say. I think we need edge help. We obviously need the corner and the depth help like there as well. But if Aiden Hutchinson is there at the board, you got to go get Aiden Hutchinson, right? Now, I know what a lot of you guys are going to be saying is like, oh, this is just a Jets homer trying to get the best player in the draft to the Jets. Again, Aiden Hutchinson is not my best player in the draft. He is not my number 1, like, on my big board. Ikem Ekwonu is. I think if Ikem Ekwonu was here, I think the Jets seriously consider it. I think that they would take Ikem Ekwonu and they would look at possibly, like, doing something to the interior of the offensive line. Can Laken Tomlinson play center? Can Elijah Vera Tucker play center? Can anybody play center to make room for Icky there? Does anybody want Mekhi Becton? Does anybody want George Fant? Like, I think they love Ikem Ekwonu and they would do that. And so, but when you have this high of an edge, I think the best edge on the board, Aiden Hutchinson at 4. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if this happened, but I just don't think that this might necessarily play out this way. But this is, like I said, there are no trades in this situation. Aiden Hutchinson, here is my pick at 4. Now, the Giants come in here, and they have a lot to think about because we've just got confirmation that the Giants will be trading away James Bradbury, their cornerback, away. And that team is built on really, really good defensive back rooms. That defense is built on a really, really good like safety and defensive back pairing. The other thing that they need help in is the offensive line. Now, if you're the Giants, Charles Cross is still here on the board, but so is Kyle Hamilton. And you have to ask yourself the question of, do the New York Giants think that the Carolina Panthers are 100% sold on an offensive lineman? Are they, like... I just don't know necessarily what that pick is here because, like, whatever pick you make, Carolina can trade back out of 6. There's nothing saying that they have to pick here. So if you're thinking about that in that situation, do you take Charles Cross and then you're just happy with it? And then at 7, you see how the board plays out to get the other guy that you might want? Or do you say, screw it, let's take the guy that we want? In this situation, I have them going Charles Cross. I think they need the tackle. I think they need the tackle desperately. And you just got to get your guy. You need the offensive line help. You got to see what you have in Daniel Jones. So you got to make that pick. Here's where it gets a little bit tricky, right? Carolina here at 6. I had them every day of the week taking an offensive lineman. But I have 3 offensive linemen going in the top 5. So now you have to look at it and you go, so what does Carolina do here? Do they pivot and they take the quarterback? I think so. I think all of the signs are pointing that they're going to take a quarterback here. I don't like it. I'm not the biggest fan of Kenny Pickett as an NFL prospect. He's been at college for 5 years now. You know, he's played a lot of football, yes, but like Kenny Pickett, I'm almost positive Kenny Pickett is older than Sam Darnold. Or like they're the same age. So it's like one of those things where it's just like, are you going to take the rookie guy that's coming in, that's got a lot of questions about his game? He's a one-year wonder. Like, he played 4 years of really mediocre football and then went back for his 5th year and blew it up, and now he's a first. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of Kenny Pickett, but I'm going to have Carolina doing the Kenny Pickett pick here because I think that's what they're going to do. There's a lot of connections to Pitt, and I think that's what happens. Now, the Giants are back on the board at 7, and I think that they are ecstatic. They are absolutely freaking out. The guy that they wanted is here on the board, and I think that they sprint to the podium, and I think they go get Ahmad Gardner. I think they need the cornerback help. Bradbury's getting traded, and you're now looking at a cornerback room of Adoree Jackson and Ahmad Gardner, like bookending your ends, your outside, the perimeter on your defense, and I think you're really, really happy there. And I think you can address the safety room, because I did think about Kyle Hamilton here a little bit, but I think you can address the safety room later on in the draft. Let's go. Sorry if my voice sounds a little bit weird. I went to the USA versus Panama game, and I am this close to losing my voice, so that's why it sounds a little bit weird. Atlanta needs to take Garrett Wilson here, right? Like, I'm gonna take the pick because that's what the pick I think that they need to do. But like, if they don't take Garrett Wilson, like, you just move the franchise, right? Just sell it, just sell the team, like, and fire everybody. You can't go into this season without anybody in that wide receiver room worth a damn. And I think Garrett Wilson is absolutely has to be the pick here. I think he's the most pro-ready wide receiver. I think his skills translate to the pro game as the best out of any of these guys. I don't think he has the highest ceiling out of any of these guys, but like, I don't think you're taking high ceiling here. I think you're taking high floor. I think Garrett Wilson is one of those prospects that you would look at as like, it's a very low chance he busts out in the NFL, and that's what you got to take here, and that's what you do. Now, Seattle is one of those teams where I looked at them and I said, man, they would have loved, and I mean loved, if one of the tackles, one of the top 3 tackles fell to them, but it didn't. And then I looked at this, I looked at their team, and I tried to break down, what do I think they're going to be doing on that team. I don't think they go wide receiver here unless a DK trade is on the horizon that we don't know about. Wink, wink. Maybe go watch the video I did yesterday. I don't know if a wide receiver is on the table here. I think the highest likely scenario here is if the tackles aren't here, they definitely go and they take Kayvon Thibodeau, edge out of Oregon. I think they need help on the edges. I think that's what you need to do. And so I look at it and I go, absolutely, you take this guy, you sprint to the podium, you do all of that stuff. So the Jets are back up at 10, and I think we know where this pick is going. I really, really like Drake London, and personally, I would take Drake London if I was the Jets. But I think Treylon Burks and what he provides, I know he had a bad combine day, but with Treylon Burks and what he does at a very similar size, 6'3", 225, he seems to fit the mold of what the Jets are trying to do with receiver-wise. If you look at the receivers that they're all linked to, it's 6'1", 215. It's 6'4", 235. It's 6'2", 225. Treylon Burks fills that mold a little bit more. I have him as my 3rd wide receiver on the board over Jameson Williams and Chris Olave. So at 10, I'm going to have the Jets take their guy. This might be a little bit of a reach, but they believe that this can be their Debo. You take your Debo, they're getting Treylon Burks. Washington, easy pick. It's Kyle Hamilton here. I think after they went and got Carson Wentz, I think the Washington Commanders have 2 holes on their roster. That's a linebacker and that's safety. And with the best safety prospect we've seen in a while, you got to go take Kyle Hamilton. That's really it. I don't think Kyle Hamilton gets taken in the top 10, not because I don't think he's a good talent, but just because safety in the top 10 is a positional value nightmare if it's me and I'm thinking about it. So I wouldn't do that. Now, a team that always, and I mean always, I can't seem to figure out what they're going to do is the Vikings. Because, like, the Vikings are a pretty complete team. But, like, my thing here is I think they have to address the defensive side of the ball. There's not an interior offensive lineman that I think that they might take this high. You can have the conversation of, like, do they take a Tyler Linderbaum this high? Maybe. Do they look at a Zion Johnson or Kenyon Green? Maybe, but I think this is a little bit too high for those guys. So I think they roll the dice with the interior of the offensive line in the second round. And then the question comes down to me, is it Trent McDuffie or is it George Karlaftis? It's those two guys for me that it comes down to when it comes to, or even Trayvon Walker. Do they like Trayvon Walker and do they want him to be a pick there? I think those two guys, like, I think it's edge or it's cornerback room. Danielle Hunter's coming back. Do you believe that he's going to be elite again? I do. I really believe in Danielle Hunter. So for me, I'm going to address the wide receiver room. I'm going to take Trent McDuffie. It's always there. Now the Texans are back on the board, and I have them going, Jordan Davis out of Georgia. I think with Nick Caserio coming from the Bill Belichick tree, I think that the trenches are something that Bill Belichick really, really, really likes to build out of. Not necessarily the edges, but the interior of the defensive line is something that's very, very important to Bill Belichick. We see him 2 times a year. We know that more than anybody. And I think Nick Caserio is going to try to take the largest and the fastest and the strongest humans on the planet, if they can, at those picks. And I think that if they come away with Evan Neal, who's a massive behemoth of a human being, and Jordan Davis, I think, I don't think there's a Texans fan out there who can really be upset. You're getting good players at positions of need that can play on your team for a very, very long time. Now, personally, I don't like any of the Georgia defensive interior guys this high up in the draft personally, but I do think that a lot of teams do like them. I think that Jordan Davis and Devonta Wyatt are 2 down guys. They're coming in your first and your second down. I don't think they have very much pass skills, but when you're looking at a guy that's that athletic, coaches are going to look at that and they're going to say, you know what, I can train that up in him. Let's keep this moving on. The Baltimore Ravens here at 14. There are 2 players that I'm looking at it here for the Baltimore Ravens, and that is Derek Stingley Jr. and that is Tyler Linderbaum. I think the Ravens need to address the defensive back room. I think they need the help. They brought in Marcus Williams, so I don't think that the safety is necessarily a super big need there. But they do need help at corner because they got to get younger. I don't think that they can just run like Marcus Peters on there. Like, that's who they have listed here. But the other thing that I look at in this situation is, do they maybe want to take a George Karlaftis? George Karlaftis to help come in on that edge is an interesting pick here. But I think the pick has to be Derek Stingley here. I think Derek Stingley has a much higher ceiling, and with how deep this edge class is, they'll be able to get a serviceable edge in the second round to help that defensive line stay healthy. Now, the first of 3 Eagles picks, I'm going to start by taking the guy that I think is going to be a Philadelphia Eagle, and that's Devin Lloyd. They need help in the linebacker room desperately. They're going to just, with the first of their 3 picks, address that, not risk any team coming up to 17 or 18 to try to get him out of there. They need a linebacker. We're going to get them a linebacker. Devin Lloyd comes in. Beautiful. Easy breezy. Let's move on. At pick 16, if this guy is still here, they're going to sprint to the board and they're going to go get him, and that's Drake London. I think I have almost no faith in the wide receiver room in Philadelphia. Jalen Reagor's a bust. We know that. He's not a number 1. He's not a number 2. He's a serviceable number 3, if that. Devonta Smith, while he did have a good rookie season, I don't believe in him. personally. I think he's a gadget guy. I think there's a lot of things that you need to do to get him working. I really hope that I'm wrong with him, because I would love to be able to see wide receivers that are that small and that skinny and that shifty work in the NFL. But I just have a massive fear of his frame in the NFL long term. And again, like, I hope I'm wrong. I hope he has a really, really long career. I never wish for injury or anything like that on any player, but it just terrifies me. And I'm scared of that long term. We'll see as time goes on if he can have the longevity of a career. But Drake London is the exact opposite of those two guys. Big body. He's not super fast. He's a contested catch guy. And just like everyone else on that team, he's a yards after the catch guy. Drake London to the Philadelphia Eagles here is the easiest pick I think I'm going to make in this entire draft. Now, the Chargers are on the clock, and I think they need help on the defensive interior of the line. So I have them going Devonta Wyatt here, just because he's the best defensive interior guy on the team. You add that with Khalil Mack and Bosa. Is it Joey Bosa? Yeah, it's Joey Bosa. I can't remember which Bosas. I can't remember the first name of the Bosas in the San Francisco or the Chargers. I think it's Joey. On the edges, like, that's great. I look at that and I go, damn, what a defensive line unit. That's awesome. You just go there and that's it. Now, this pick here is a tackle. Now, the question here is it Trevor Penning, who I love, or is it Bernard Raymond, who they have rated really highly? I also have Tyler Smith higher up on my board than most people. I really, really like Tyler Smith. I also have Darian Kennard as a guard, but I'm going to go Trevor Penning here. I think Trevor Penning fits that system really, really well. I really, really like the nastiness that he brings to the offensive line, and I really like that pick. And then the Eagles back at 19, I think they take George Karlaftis. I think they need edge help. I think the bringing in an edge to partner on the other side of Riddick is just going to be really, really good for them. And I think that you see that, and you're just happy if you're them. Now, the Steelers are another interesting team to look at, because the Steelers have holes, but they don't have, like, massive holes. So I look at it and I go, is Nakobe Dean an option here? I don't think so. I think him being as small as he is doesn't fit the defensive scheme that they're running. They addressed the offensive line, so does that mean that they want to take an offensive lineman this high? I don't think so. They did bring back Whitehead in the cornerback room, but I honestly think that that's probably where they go, is cornerback. And so I'm going to have them going Andrew Booth Jr. out of Clemson here at 20. Now, we go the Patriots. I think the Patriots are just going to get another freak athlete. I think it's Travon Walker here. I think Travon Walker can bounce inside and play outside. He's an extremely good athlete when it comes to just pure athleticism, right? And even though he doesn't have a bunch of pass rushing skills, this is where I see Travon Walker going. I understand the hype of everyone looking at him and being like, oh my God, he's got massive arms and he's a freak athlete. I don't think he's a top 10 pick. Personally, I wouldn't want Travon Walker. I don't want Travon Walker at 4. And it's just because, I want guys who can pin their ears back and can get after the quarterback, especially in Robert Saleh's system. But Travon Walker to the Patriots makes almost too much sense in my eyes. And I really, really like this pick. Green Bay here at 22, they get rewarded with their patience, and they get one of the top 5 wide receivers. I think they go Chris Olave here, and I think that's just because they don't have depth in the wide receiver room. Even though I agree, I have Jameson Williams ranked higher on my board, it's availability, and that's really what it is. We don't know when Jameson Williams is going to be available yet. We're hearing rumblings that he's going to be good to go and ready for OTAs, but I haven't seen anything definitive, and until that, Chris Olave is going to go before Jameson Williams every single time on my board. The Cardinals are going to take Tyler Linderbaum. I think they need to fill in that protect the interior of the offensive line. I hear what you're saying about Tyler Linderbaum with being, he would probably be I think it's the smallest center taken in the first round, or I don't remember what the stat is. I understand the concerns about his size, 6'3", 290. I think he can put on some weight and still move the way that he does. And the Cardinals need to protect their franchise quarterback in Kyler Murray. You know, we saw all of this offseason drama and everything that they did. You just need to protect your guy. So protect your guy. Now we go to the Dallas Cowboys here, and I think the Dallas Cowboys are a team that this is, I think, where Nakobe Dean goes. I don't see an offensive lineman prospect that I'm going to go sprinting to the board at. I think they're not super sold on their offensive line, but I also don't think that they're going to take like a Bernard Raymond this high or anything like that. I don't necessarily look at their wide receiver room and say that they need to take a wide receiver. The defensive line is a little bit thin. Do you maybe take a Jermaine Johnson here? Actually, that's probably the pick. Jermaine Johnson is going to be the pick here. I really like Jermaine Johnson. I have him falling down my board just because he's a little bit older on my side. For my liking, I really like Jermaine Johnson. If he was on the Jets, I'd get his jersey, right? But my thing is Jermaine Johnson's a little bit on the older side, and he started to only really flash at the Senior Bowl, you know, and all of those things. You could kind of see his faults at Florida State, and so that's where my concern comes in a little bit there. The Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are a sneaky team here because there's a good to fair chance that they just might take a wide receiver here, or they might take a linebacker here, or a running back here. I don't know. I've had them taking a wide receiver here for the longest time, but they just signed Corey Davis, so I don't think they need a wide receiver. I don't think they need help on the defensive line. Like, I don't agree here with PFF. I think their defensive line is perfectly fine. So for me, the pick comes down here is, do you take Nakobe Dean here to help that linebacking room and make a defense that's already lethal even more lethal? Or do you just say, you know what, screw it, we're going to take a running back this high up, and you know what, I'm going to take the running back in the first round. I'm gonna have them taking Breece Hall here. Is it Hall or Walker? I think a lot of people have Hall higher up on their board than Walker, and I think they just take Breece Hall here at 25. You're a team that has almost no holes. You can get a linebacker in the second that's going to do and provide just as much as like any of these guys here. Yeah, you can get a running back in the second, but why not just get your pick of running backs? Nakobe Dean's a little small for my liking. And that's why he's going to fall down these boards. Like, I've seen mock drafts with Nakobe Dean not even in the first round. And to be fair, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. The Tennessee Titans are on the board. And this is another team that I look at and I go, I have no idea what you're going to do. The Tennessee Titans don't have very many holes on their roster. If Caleb Farley can come back in and play like the #1 corner that we kind of saw flashes of in college, then you don't need to worry about him. I think Landry and Dupree just had off years. I think you see something out of them. Like, maybe do you go interior of the offensive line? Like, do you go Raymond here and try to go, like, and bump one of the guys that you have interior? You got the Bucks coming up here, and you could really ruin their day by taking a Zion Johnson or something like that because they have to replace the guard that retired. I think you take the tackle here. I think this would be a sneaky pick for a Sam Howell in my eyes. Oh, but I like that pick more. A team that doesn't have a lot of needs. Sam Howell has an incredibly high upside. He needs time to develop. No, I'm going to do the safe pick. I'm going to take Bernard Raymond here. I'm going to take the tackle. I think they need the tackle help, and I know they have Lawan, but Lawan gets hurt all the time. So get the insurance, get a swing tackle, Bernard Raymond. I think Zion Johnson to the Bucks. Write that in right now. Make it happen. It's going to be Zion Johnson or it's going to be Kenyon Green. Those are the two guys that are going to go there. Green Bay is back on the board. And now here's where you look at it and you go, Green Bay, did they make a mistake taking a wide receiver at 22? And I think not really, because there's not a bad pick that they can make here. Question is, do they double dip? And I don't think they do. I think this is where you're going to see Louis Sign go. Help shore up that secondary. They went and they got Chris Olave. I like Chris Olave. Yeah, I think I'm going to go Louis Sign. Help Amos there in that backfield, in that safety room, and then you go from there. I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to take Jameson Williams. It's almost the perfect replacement for Tyreek Hill. Fast, like quick receiver, good soft hands. You know, it's just a good pickup for them. And the other thing that I look at with the Chiefs is now they have the second pick, and the second pick is really interesting because, again, this is a team that that has holes. They need to fix those holes. But the players that are available in those holes aren't necessarily great. So the question is, do they just take best player available here? And for me, that would be David Ojabo. Knowing that he's hurt and that he might miss a year. Thinking about it not this year, but 2 years from now. You know? I don't know. I don't know what they do here. I think that, like, oh, they haven't gotten their corner yet. Yeah, I'm going to have Kaiir Elam corner to Kansas City. I think they need the corner. I was going under the assumption that Bradbury was already in Kansas City because I think that's where he ends up. But he's not there yet. So you can't just assume that they're going to trade for him until he's traded for him. So I'm going to do that. Now, the Bengals are a super interesting team as well. A lot of teams are really interesting, but the real problem is like, the back half of this draft can go a million different ways because a lot of these teams, obviously there's a reason that they're this down on the board, is they don't have very many holes, or the holes that they do have are players that, like, I wouldn't take in this position. I think these players are, I think these would be reaches for these players. So I look at the Bengals and I go, you know what? They need interior offensive line help, but there's no one here that I would go and say, like, they desperately need to go get Kenyon Green. I think if they might, and I think Kenyon Green would be a great add here. But I also look at that, like, room and I go, like, maybe Nakobe Dean is the pick here. Like, right now it's between Nakobe Dean and Kenyon Green. And I think you just got to go Kenyon Green. Like, I really like Kenyon Green. I'm going to go Kenyon Green. And then the Lions are back up on the board. And I have no idea. Honestly, if they go quarterback at 32, at 2, I'm sorry, I have no idea what they do at 32. Do they take a corner here? Do they take Jalen Petrie or Daxton Hill to try to replace Okudah? Do they take an edge here? Like, we had Aiden Hutchinson going to them for the longest time. Do they take a wide receiver here? Like, maybe like a Sky Moore or a Jahan Dotson? Like, I just don't know what the pick is for them here. I think that you got to replace Okudah and what he's doing. And I'm going to have them do that with Daxton Hill. I like Daxton Hill here a lot. So let me know what you guys think of this draft. You can see the full draft results right here. Let me know and yell at me in the comment section. What picks were horrible? What picks did I make that you thought were right? If any, you know... I'd love to hear from you guys, but other than that, don't forget that we are doing a giveaway on the channel, and all of that information is in a video that I will link in the description below. Any likes and comments will be appreciated. Remember, subs are how we're going to finish out this giveaway, and last but not least, go Jets.